We will do a full Loxone planning for this floor. We will cover audio, access, lighting, shading, klima, alarm, presence, touch positioning, what cables to use, how to wire it, tips and tricks from the practice. Let's go. So we have this little entry hall here. There is the main door, I guess. Then we have a nice open living dining area, super modern but difficult to control. Let's talk about this in a second. One bedroom, bathroom. Then we have a kid bedroom or a guest bedroom, whatever. And we just assume that the main cabinet is over here. Let's start with the access to our dream smart home. Loxone has a perfect and super nice product for it. Basically it's two, but it makes super much sense to have them combined. One of it is the Loxone intercom, which requires a LAN cable, a network cable. It's powered over Ethernet. So ideally the switch already has a PoE output. Otherwise there is PoE adapters or injectors, something like this here. Then I can ring the doorbell. I get the notification in my app, super nice. But if I also want to open the door, NFC code touch is the product for you. You can define codes or you use this NFC tag here. Both work independently, individually. But as I said, there is a double frame where you have the intercom on the top and the NFC on the bottom. And for the wiring, as we said, the intercom needs a LAN with a PoE, power over Ethernet. And then the intercom has a 3 and 24 volt output to directly power the NFC down below. Let's imagine here is our network rack. I will put some links down below, but basically it's something like this. It's a network rack where you put the switch in there and other stuff. And here would be the LAN cable going to the intercom to the main door. I go with LAN here for the intercom. And then, as I said, I could go from the intercom to the NFC, but I always, in a new building, wire a dedicated tree cable, let's call it a bus cable, from the tree extension or the tree branch of the mini server to there as well, because if for any reason the network, the switch, whatever is not working properly, then you would not be able to access your house without a physical key, because the NFC would then work via the network protocol. Or basically it works via tree, but the tree from the intercom then is going through the network. So just for the price for a second cable, you're independent from the network for your access. Because in a network error, you can also not use your phone to unlock the door because, the network error. Next, let's talk about how to open the door. And I know a lot of you guys asked me about stuff like this here, the Nuki door lock. This is perfectly combined with Loxone. You have this retrofitting option. It works for several countries. Check the Nuki website. I will put some links down below as well. But in Europe, I typically have this built inside of the door directly. I don't even know the English name for it, but it's basically an electrical door opener built inside of the door. And then with two contacts, typically, if you short circuit them, it opens the door. There is a cheap version for this as well, something like this for 50 bucks. You put 24 volt on it or 12 volt, check it out. There is different versions, different countries. It doesn't fit for everyone, of course. In the entrance to my office, I can open the door here. Then you hear it click and you can just open it. So this is built in here. And if I press it, the relay is closed for the time I say. And then I have time for like 3 seconds and then it's closing again. But this is not locking the door. It's not turning the key. It's way not so secure like a Nuki, which turns the key, or a built-in, roughly 1,000 euro door lock inside of the door. So let's say we also need here a cable, a 2-core wire. If it's the high-end version, the 1,000 euro motor lock, then typically I use a cat cable because there is more functions like just to open. There is other stuff as well. And maybe for this door, you also need permanent power high voltage. Then you might need a 3-core cable. whatever. Depends on the door. Next, let's cover audio, and Loxone offers some super cool system here. First, there is the audio server and its stereo extensions, where you can put any 4 to 8 ohm speaker directly on it with a 2-core cable. I recommend a 2.5 square, 100% copper, not these asshole cables with copper outside and other stuff inside. No, sucks. 100% copper. Then I typically put the audio server inside of the network rack with these DIN rails here, because then you're not mixing the high voltage with the speaker cables for interference, for better ventilation of the audio server. That's super nice. If you want to go this way, then the wiring would be as follow. Let's say we have a bedroom here. We need some nice speaker here. In the bathroom as well. Maybe here we have 3 speakers thing here. There might be a lamp in the middle. This might even be too much. Maybe 2 is enough here. Yeah, but let's go for it, right? And then we have the network rack here as well. And then we would go with the speakers. Every speaker with a 2-core cable, 2.5 square, 100% copper. I can't say it enough. Back to the network rack. If you have suspended ceilings, please note that the Loxone speakers, these guys here, they need approximately 10 centimeters of depth. Then there is a new system, the master client system, where the speaker is no longer passive but active, communicating digitally, not having the problem with the analog signal with the speaker cable. It's super nice, it's twice as loud, but it's a bit more expensive, but still you spare the audio server with the mini server compact, or even the stereo extensions that you would need for the passive one. So it's not that much more expensive, but there is several advantages. First of all, the wiring would look a little different. If you have a room where you want to have an independent source, so maybe the kids want to listen to different music than you in the master bedroom, then you need a so-called master speaker. And onto the master speaker, you can connect clients, and the clients would be in this scenario. Here, this is the master. Then this is the client, and this is the client as well. Take care that the master to client can only be daisy chained, so from one to another, no tree topology or something, really like it's shown here. The only limitation from a client is that it always have the same source than the master here, which is totally fine in an open area. You could say I only play music on the master in the kitchen, maybe here a different volume than there, it doesn't matter, only the source is the same. So if you have an independent room here, then I would say this one is a master as well. You can then wire from the master to the next master. So you could go like this if it's possible in the on-site. Maybe you still go in a star for more future-proofness, but from the topology, as you see here, you can go from master to master to master, or maybe shown here as well. If you have concrete ceilings, then you need this housing here for concrete. This will be fixed with nails, so this goes like this, and then you nail it down, and then you break it out on site, and here will be concrete, and it has the perfect volume for the 7-inch speaker, and there is a 10-inch speaker version as well, which blasts the shit out of your ears. I love it, and there is a subwoofer, but only in master client version as well. Rapidly moving on to the lighting. You can, of course, use any high voltage light, let's say 230 volt, on and off is super easy. You just connect it to a relay, 230, 110, depending on your country. You just switch it on and off, whatever lamp you typically, or let's say whatever normal lamp you typically get, just on and off. Then Loxone has a dimmer extension, high voltage. There is a US version, I think, or a 110 volt version, let's call it as well, and a 230 version, and it has 4 outputs, with one channel having 400 watts and the others, I think, 210 watts. With LED, it's half of it, and there is some other limitations, so definitely check out the documentation for it. I am not a huge fan of high voltage dimming. It leads to flickering, it leads to problems when the customer afterwards changes the lamp, because in the config, you need to say, is it trailing edge, leading edge, whatever, halogen lamp and shit. And if the customer changes the lamp, I just try to avoid it because in my opinion, there is a way, way, way better option, which is the RGBW dimmer. This one here. I have a super detailed video which I'll link you above here because you can basically use all these 4 channels as one RGBW. Or you say I have 4 individual channels. This can be 4 rooms with just white dimmable. So you could use the Loxone PWM spots. Or there is also tunable spots. Then you need 2 channels of the dimmer. So you can have 2 tunable channels on one dimmer. And if you calculate $80 for the dimmer, you have 4 rooms for it. So $20 per dimmed channel with 50 watts would be with 5 watt spots, 10 spots on one channel. Crazy. So I always go for this. So if we have, let's say, suspended ceiling here, then we have, let's say, then we might have some normal lamp here, 230 volt on or off. Maybe you want it dimmable as well. Then we might have spots here in the kitchen area, ceiling spots here. And these, if it is PWM spots, then you need to wire them like a normal lighting circuit. And then you go back to the cabinet. This one lighting circuit, back to the cabinet. These 3 spots is one circuit for the kitchen, back to the cabinet. There are some exceptions to this. If you use the Loxone 3 lighting, there is 3 spots, there is surface mounted spots, there is other spots. These offer RGBW, so color light, but you can also use them just in warm white and stuff, but of course it have the color inside. They are a little bit more expensive, but they are individually addressable. So if you say, maybe I just want these 2 spots together here, then you can group them even later in the software individually. You're not dependent on how they are wired. Then there is DALI as well, if you know this protocol. There is the Loxone DALI extension. It's quite expensive, but then you have 64 DALI devices. I think there is a smaller DALI extension now as well for 10 devices for $240. And DALI is basically the same. You have a 5-core wire, but it's high voltage. And then you can also group the DALI devices later in the software. But typically, I plan for 24 volt PWM circuits. There is even lighting bulbs like here from this company, 24 volt. So you can turn any lamp with this E27 into, so you don't see, you see 24. Trust me, guys. I'm an engineer that has this bulb or this E27, then any of those can be turned into a 24 volt lamp. Let's say we have a dim light there as well. Then we have a maybe on and off light here, 230 volt. This goes back to the cabinet. Then we have spots here maybe also. Super nice, blah, blah, blah. Boom, boom, boom. And then back to the DB. Here in the entrance, we have a dimmable light there as well with E27, for instance. Here there might be another one, just a wall light. And that's it. Maybe not, because maybe you are like me and you love LED strips. Then you might have a LED strip behind the TV screen. Then you need a 5-core wire, maybe here below the kitchen as well. It's super nice. Maybe in the bathroom, right, for some nice, relaxing scene and stuff. And when it comes to LED strips, it's important to note that LED strips typically have lots of power. 5 meters, like 100 watt or something on 24 volts. So you might need so you might consider voltage drop, cable diameter, how to connect it to the LED strip. If you're interested, I'll do another dedicated video to LED strips. Then let's cover shading. And it does not really matter if you have, like in Europe, these shutters here, I think is the English name, or the roller blinds, like these guys here. Or maybe you have curtains in your country, or outside shades, inside shades, doesn't really matter. If the motor is high voltage, make sure the motor is stupid, no wireless stuff, no logic inside. We need 2 relays to power up and down with high voltage. That's the easiest way. And then typically I go with every motor, with every shade, I go back to the main cabinet onto a relay extension. So let's just imagine that's the shades that we got, here another one, and here are all the motors. And that's one option to do it. There is another one. There is another option, which is the Loxone Nano 2 Relay 3. Marketing did an awesome job here. It's nano because it's freaking small. 2 relay because it has 2 relays and it's on 3. But let me tell you that you cannot properly fit all this stuff inside of this little box here. You need a bigger box. And then you have the nice advantage that you can go with 230 or high voltage, let's say, to the first Nano 2 relay. And also you go with 3. So you have 2 wires to the Nano. And then there you connect the motor to it. And then you go to the next window, to the next, to the next, to the next, with 2 wires like this. And then you don't have so many cables coming from each motor back to the cabinet. But as you see here, you have the motor then connected as well. So in this box, you have 5 cables. High voltage coming, bus cable coming. Bus cable leaving, high voltage leaving, and the motor cable. So in no freaking world except the marketing world, this would all fit inside of this little box here. Yeah, but maybe it's just me. When it comes to shading, do not forget about a proper wind detection. Loxone offers a weather station by themselves. It needs a bus cable and it has a rain sensor, wind speed, temperature and brightness sensor. Mainly we use it for wind speed, that these shades we use in Austria, outside shades, do not get damaged because these lamelles and they are like super sensitive to high wind speed. So we put them in storm protection mode with the weather station. But of course you can also use the rain sensor, the rain prediction, all this weather data for garden watering and other crazy stuff that we might cover in some future videos. So this might be the time for you to cover the like button down below and the subscribe button. Would be my pleasure. Next, let's cover the Loxone push buttons and how to control your smart home properly. Typically, I will put a Loxone touch next to every door, especially when you leave the house with a triple tap. You can then say all the lights in the whole house, turn off, alarm system, armed with a delay, and much, much more. Then I would say here in the kitchen area, maybe let's put a touch here. Then let's say we can leave here and here, so maybe I would love to put one here and one here, but customers typically say, well, they are pretty expensive. Couldn't we say we have one here? Yeah, we could. But it would suck, because then you open the door like this and the touch is over there. It sucks. How often do you build a house? I'm not asking you guys in America. Then I would have one inside here as well, super nice with the wiring. You can just connect them through here like this. And then you might have one next to the bed on every side. Then we have one here, so every time you can leave the room. And then for this room inside here, we have one as well. Also consider that the touch has a temperature sensor, so if a room is a dedicated underfloor, radiator, whatever HVAC zone that you would like to regulate by itself, then even if you have a motion sensor turning on the light, let's say a storage room where you would not need a touch, but if you want to regulate the temperature, then a touch would be nice because you need to know the current temperature to regulate. So I think I would be fine with this. Now let's talk about how would I wire them. Typically you can go in any topology you want. So you can go from here to there to there, from here to there to there to there to there. The only thing which is not allowed would be to form a ring. If you like to be super future-proof, then you can also wire every room individually, like this, back to the cabinet. This would be my recommendation in the standard. And then, as I said, you're super, super future-proof. And you might have wondered why the hell I did not cover, when we talked about shading, the window contacts. At least in my country, when you buy windows, you can buy them directly with integrated, non-visible window contacts, magnetic contacts, like you see maybe here, magnets inside of the window, and then you need to wire them as well somehow. And typically you would need every window sensor back to the main DB, or you could say I have one cat cable in a room where I put all of them together, and then on one cat cable I can have up to 7 window contacts because I need plus ones and it has 8 cores. So I can use the same plus for 7 sensors in return, going back on digital inputs of the mini server or the DI extension. When you wire the push buttons here with a cat cable, and you might just have a couple of windows, then you could say I go with a cat cable to the touch, and behind the touch I use a bigger box like for network stuff with a deeper hole in it. Then you could say I group the window contacts behind the touch and I use the 4 remaining cables from the cut cable, because 4 are used for the Loxone 3 bus and 24, and the 4 remaining ones. Do I look stupid when I do like this? I don't know. We'll see in the editing. Yes, you did. So I can use the 4 for the window contacts, or in the kitchen area, maybe I'm using a 24 volt water sensor, something like this guy here. That's for the push buttons, and now comes the presence sensors, and there's lots of mistakes are being made on the presence side every day, and I'm making sure you're not becoming one of those fools. Let's start with the easy rooms. We have one here for the entrance area. We have one here for the bathroom. Then here, let's say we put it nicely in the middle. In this scenario, it would work, because what I would always do is I use the included stickers, which are shown here. With these pizza slices, you can hide an area of the presence sensor. And if you position it wisely, you can just hide the area of the bed here, so you are not relying on any crazy logic with triple tabbing, night mode turns on, disabling the presence sensor with the dis-P input of the lighting controller function block. It's all super nice if you do it every single day and you never forget to do the freaking triple tap. And then it pisses you off when you turn around and the light turns on. So better is you position it somehow like this, and then you hide the area of the bed. For this area, open space, it's always difficult. We could say we use one here and one here, depending on the size of the room. Loxone tells it has 8 meters of radius, so we would need some measurements of the room to now position it and calculate it properly. Maybe here it's nice that you can say, okay, when you move to the kitchen from the living room, that you turn on the kitchen light if you move there, could be an option. Then for the wiring, if you have concrete ceilings and you need to pipe it, then I would wire it like this. One presence sensor to the next, to the next, to the next. And then from the last one, I also go to the cabinet, but I label the pipe with like a reserve, strategic pipe reserve. Because you should not connect it on both ends, then we have the ring again. But if there is somewhere, let's say here, there is no more connection, because the concrete guys, they're not like super sensitive when it comes to pipes, and maybe they screw it up here, so it's no longer possible, then you can use the return or the reserve pipe to wire it from the other end, so you have one more chance to get there. If you live in a country like America or something, then it might be easier inside of the room to go from the push button onto the ceiling via the wall. In Austria, we mainly use concrete ceilings, then it would be a dedicated presence sensor ceiling or concrete line. Oh, fuck man, it's already pretty much wiring, right? We did forget one central thing, which is the normal sockets. It doesn't really affect Loxone only if you want to switch a socket via Loxone. So if you want to have in the living room, for instance, you have one socket which is dedicated for the Christmas tree, and it should be switchable. Then this socket needs to be a dedicated cable going from the living room back to the cabinet. Or you use a 5-core wire for the living area, and then depending if you put it on the black cable, for instance, then it's permanent power. On the gray cable, it's switching circuit 1, and there might be a switching circuit 3 as well. The colors I just mentioned, please note that there is a local laws and regulations for your country. This is not electrical advice. This is just for understanding the main schematics. Always consider a local professional. which doesn't talk as much as me and works more maybe. So that's mainly it. The only few things might now be when it comes to underfloor heating, we might need the valve actuators for the underfloor heating circuit, so we need a bus cable to the cabinet there as well. If you have a heat pump, you might need a control cable with Modbus. If you have a domestic hot water system with a coil in it for heating up, then this might be a cable for Loxone, an electric car charger. So there is a bit more to consider, but for the main understanding, I hope that this helped you. If that's the case, leave a lovely comment down below, I read them all. Subscribe to the channel for more in-depth content. And if you love the crazy stuff as much as I do, then I'll see you in the next one.